Hello and welcome to our lesson on sheets and pages. We're going to be looking at spreadsheets again, and we'll be looking at the different sheets and how they can link to each other. And we're also going to be looking at some other functions that will just make your life a little bit easier when working in a spreadsheet. So we're going to start off by looking at our workbook. So this is our workbook. And each workbook consists of a number of sheets. So right here at the bottom, you'll see there's links, line, freeze protect, link cells, and sheet 1. So those are the different sheets that you have in your workbook. You can add a lot of sheets to your workbook. And the nice thing about that is that you keep your information separate from each other. And you can also rename these sheets obviously. So for instance, we've got sheet 1 here. We can right click on the sheet 1 and then we can select rename, and rather let's call this something like units sold, and then just press enter. You can also go and change the tab color, so you can color code your tabs within your workbook. So that's also very useful. Let's make this one purple. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is moving and copying sheets. Now, every now and then it's necessary to copy information from one sheet to the next. You might want to manipulate data in a different way, or you want to experiment with one of your spreadsheets, but you don't want to change the original one. Okay, so to do this, you're going to right-click on the sheet name that you want to move or copy, and then you're going to select Move or Copy. And at this point, if you want to make a copy, select the little tick box here that says Create a Copy. And you can either create the copy within the current workbook, or you could even copy it to a new workbook. Now you might think to yourself, why aren't we just copying and pasting it into a different sheet or a different workbook? When you copy and paste, it doesn't always keep your formatting in the correct order. So it might change the width of your columns, and then you're going to have to spend time readjusting all those columns and making sure everything fits properly. Where if you use this function, it keeps everything in place. Right, so I've selected Create a Copy. I'm going to copy it into the current workbook, and I'm just going to move it to the end of the workbook, and then I'm going to select OK. Right, so here's my link cells. It will give it the same name. It will just put a 2 in bracket to indicate that that is a copy of the cell. All right. The next thing we're going to look at is your grid lines and your headings. So at the moment you can't really see the grid lines because I've got a background color here, but usually you can see the faint grid lines on your screen. And you can also choose to print those grid lines if you wanted to. So to do this, go to your page layout tab. Okay, and here where it says Sheet Options, I'm already viewing the grid lines, although I can't really see them because, like I say, I have a background color. But you can also select to print your grid lines. I usually don't do this because if you have an entire spreadsheet and you just worked in one section, you might actually end up printing a whole page of borders, which you don't really need. So just be careful with that. Right, then our headings. If the headings refer to these column headings A, B, C, D, E, and your row numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can actually choose not to view that if you wanted to by deselecting the view tick box over here. That would just make my life impossible in Excel because you actually need to see, I need to see the columns and the rows. And then you can also choose to print this. So if I were to go to File, Print now, if I look at my print preview, you don't see any of the column headings or row numbers. So let's just go back to our page layout tab, and now I'm going to select to print the headings. Let's go back to print again. Okay, and now you'll see that it's now included the column headings and the row numbers. Right, and that's something that I would use, for instance, if I wanted to print out an exercise for the kids to do, because then at least you can see the columns and the row numbers as well. Okay, right, let's get back to our home tab. Let's get back to our spreadsheet. The next thing we're going to look at is freezing rows and columns. Okay, so don't worry about the information on the following sheet. It is a bit overwhelming. You don't need to be able to read it. What I do want you to look at is the heading over here. Okay, so as you scroll down, the heading is going to disappear out of sight. Okay, and you might not know what is the name, what is the surname, and what is the number of units sold. And that can be problematic because you're going to have to keep on scrolling back to check the headings. So what you can do is you can actually freeze that first row. So as you scroll down, it will stay in place. Okay, so let's do that quickly. Right, so to freeze that top row, you're going to select your View tab, and then you're going to go to the Windows section over here, and you'll see the option Freeze Panes. Click on the drop down, and I'm going to choose to freeze the top row. You can also freeze other rows if you wanted to. You'll see a little line appear here. Don't let that bother you. If you scroll down now, you'll see here's row 1 and here's row 8. So as you scroll down, that will remain the same. Your first line will remain the same, or visible at least. Right, okay, let's quickly have a look at some of our printing options. If I were to go to File, Print, okay, it will just print whatever's on my sheet at this point. But you do have some other options available to you. So for instance, I could go and I could highlight a section, and then I could select Page Layout, select Print Area, and select Set Print Area. And this is very useful because now it's only going to print the section that I've highlighted. So if I go back to File and I select Print again, it's only going to print out that particular section. Okay, on your print options as well, you can, or in your spreadsheet rather, you can also choose to print your formulas. So if I look at this first one here, I double click, I've got an equal sum in there. So this is important for exam purposes at this point. We're still printing out hard copies of your spreadsheets. And we want to see your formulas. Okay, we don't really care about the answer. We want to see what you've done in terms of your formulas. Right, so to do this, you're going to select Formulas. And then on your Formula Auditing section, just look for the button that says Show Formulas. Usually I use the shortcut, which is the Control key and the symbol next to number 1 on your keyboard. Right, so select that, and everything is going to expand on your screen. Don't worry about that. But your formulas will now be visible. And it will also be visible when you print the information. Just make sure that you can see the entire formula, because sometimes when you show your formulas, if you've got a long formula like an if statement or a sum if statement, it actually cuts off the formula when you print. And it's important that you see the entire thing. Okay, right, so if we go to File, Print now, okay, let me just get rid of my print area that we set previously. So I'm going to go to Page Layout, Print Area. I'm going to clear my print area. Okay, so it's going to print everything again. Go to File, select Print, and you'll see that it's now spread over 2 pages. So if I go to the second page, here I'll see my formulas. Now obviously you don't want to do that. You don't want to split your information over 2 pages. So on your print settings, go to the scaling option right at the bottom and select Fit Sheet on 1 page. Even if it squishes everything up, it doesn't really matter. As long as we can still kind of see your formula, you're good to go. Okay, to show your formulas in OpenOffice, let's just quickly have a look at how to do that in OpenOffice. You're going to select Tools, and then you're going to go to Options, and now you're going to select View. So in OpenOffice, sometimes it looks like this when you start off, okay? So you're going to have to go to OpenOffice Calc, so you're going to open that up, and you're going to go to your View options. Right. And then on the right-hand side here it says Display, and here's your tick box for formulas. So it's important that you can find that to actually show your formulas. Obviously there's all kinds of other settings that you can also set here, like your grid lines. You can choose not to show your grid lines, your background color, etc. Right, so I've shown my formulas now. Select OK, and my formulas are now visible on my spreadsheet. Right, lastly we're going to look at protecting your worksheet. So you can password protect your worksheet if you wanted to, and you can do the same with your Word and Excel documents, or PowerPoint rather, documents as well. So when you go to save the document, okay, so I'm just going to select Save As now. Okay, please take note of how I'm doing this. You can put in a new name if you wanted to, and then you're going to select Tools. On that Tools drop down, you're going to select General Options, and then you'll see this pop up. Okay, so password to open and a password to modify. So you can now go and type in a password. Okay, so when somebody tries to open your document, it's going to ask for a password, and they have to type in that particular password. And you can add a second password that will give them access to actually changing your spreadsheet. So if you wanted to, you could also add a password there. Okay, and obviously it's going to ask you to re-enter your password to make sure that it's correct. And remember that passwords are case sensitive. So make sure, check whether your caps lock is on or off. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble getting into your own spreadsheet later on. Okay, and you're just going to save. And yes, we're going to replace the old one. And next time you go, let's quickly close this. I'll show you what it looks like. Let's go to our Windows Explorer. If we open it up again, it's going to stop us at some point and then say chart 3 is protected. Please type in the password. Okay, and you're going to type in your password, and then there's another password to modify, and finally you'll have access to your spreadsheet. This isn't the most secure thing in the world. It's not very difficult to get a hold of these passwords. If you're any good at Googling, you'll be able to get this password quite easily. But for most end users, this should be enough to keep them out of your stuff. Right. Okay, and that concludes our lesson on working with sheets and pages.